My job here is not just to ask questions, but perhaps to try to close on as positive a note as I can of what we seem to agree on. And I'm going to use a kind of a question-comment combination. I'd only ask that if I'm accurate, you agree that I'm somewhat accurate as briefly as possible. And I'll start primarily with Mr. Fraser, but I want to make sure I have total agreement. If Congress offers laws, and does it normally not, by definition, unless we expressly trample on common law remains a tool of the states. Is that correct, Mr. Fraser?
That is correct. Absent very clear language, yes.
Okay, so that's one of our challenges, to make sure that any preemption does not challenge existing laws. In the case of if you will, existing laws in states, for example, product liability laws. We've never preempted those, even though we do have some federal laws. The reality is an unsafe product, a product that injures people, have a myriad of state laws that already affect it. For example, when we went from a man striking someone to a man on a horse striking someone to a man in a car striking someone, we didn't necessarily have to make major changes in the law. They all fell, and none of them were federally preempted.
Correct, and there's a reason why law professors laugh at the idea of the law of the horse.
The law of the horse, exactly. So, Professor Richards, you gave us a great deal of caution. Is it fair to say that if we clearly carve around any question of common law preemption, and at the same time, do not stop causes of action which are, although perhaps automated by a bot and the like, still in fact follow that horse example, that in fact, for the most part, don't we meet the requirement of allowing the states to continue to protect their citizens as they have for 250 years?
I believe, Chair Issa, that states should have the ability to continue to experiment with their own laws in addition to the common law.
I fully agree with you, but and I'll go to Mr. Thayer, because this is both law and policy. You mentioned a number of times ingestion versus output. Ingestion, which cannot easily be done 50 different states and 210 different countries around the world. Isn't that also a case in which the federal government must both lead on where the standards are, particularly as to patent, copyright, other intellectual property, and in order to have a single voice speaking around the world to other countries?
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Chairman. And let's be clear, we wouldn't be here suggesting that, we should have 50 FDAs for food and drug standards or 50 FAAs for different aviation standards by every state, such that planes had to change every state. That would be crazy, right? We don't want that model for AI either. We don't want this.
But a death by fentanyl, every state has a right to have charges.
Absolutely.
In addition
on the use
to federal.
side, and let's just be clear, let's just check off the generally applicable laws that would be exempt from either moratorium or preemption: civil rights law and discrimination, unfair and deceptive practices and anti-fraud, competition policy laws at the state level, other consumer protections.
In fact, the Lanham Act actually helps the states.
We can go on down this list, and then we can get into the lawsuits. The one thing America doesn't lack is an active trial bar. Right? There's going to be a lot of ongoing lawsuits, and we should throw the book at bad actors. There's always going to be bad actors regardless of technology. We have the capability to go after them.
Dr. Bray, I don't want to leave you out of this. Isn't one of the greatest cautions we heard today that we, in fact, have to make sure that when harm is done to anyone in a given state, that they have a reasonable cause of action? If it doesn't exist federally, it must be available to them in the states. Is that correct?
That is fully correct, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fraser, I'm going to sort of guide this another way. From a standpoint of federal laws, it's fair to say that for all practical purposes, patent, trademark, copyright, these are bastions of federal law because under the recognition that they all travel interstate, they have to have one standard, rules of the road, correct?
It was very apparent to the founders that they did not want a patchwork approach to copyright and patent law. Correct.
I think they also said that no state could erect basically a drawbridge and charge a toll to pass from one state to the other. They specifically understood that states might do that.
And it's a lesson we've learned throughout history with respect to, for example, attempts to change the length of a truck before it enters another state by Iowa was declared unconstitutional. We've been here before. We don't want a patchwork when it comes to national goods.
Okay, well, I'm not far exceed because I think we have the agreement that helps us in the guidelines. Certainly, in the case of one that was mentioned briefly, Padra, which does deal with deep fakes, with the digital likenesses and the like, and which we do have bipartisan support and we look to move. That was an element today, and I'd like any of you that want to comment further for the record to do so. I guess the last thing that we all have to do is recognize for the families that came here that we, from this chair, and I think you heard it from both sides of the aisle, we want to make sure that if we pass a law that further helps protect against the losses that you had, that it consider exactly what happened in the case of your families. And that if we pass a law, that in no way should it stop the causes of actions that may exist. If anything, we at a federal level, for example, a death by fentanyl, we want to hold those who knowingly deceive and sell pills purported to be some kind of a drug when in fact they are a deadly poison, that they be able to be charged with murder, as in some cases have been done at the state level. So I can assure you from this standpoint, and I think the ranking member would not nod in any way, but yes, that is a common goal and that we heard that message loud and clear. And I want to thank those who are here today for their presence. And I want to recognize Mr. Johnson for something he wants to place in the record.